to Next Move with Travis and Eric, episode 7. And I am your host, Travis McGregor, and as always, my co-host, Eric Maloney.
Hi, Travis. Hi, Roberto.
And our distinguished guest today is Roberto Maranca.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Travis. Hello, Eric.
Thank you so much. We have a narrative now of 6 episodes, and we have a lot of content in there. So this is an attempt to boil it into some, bite-sized, understandable things. We started out with the first episode talking about, blockchain being very secure in software. Well, that's only half the equation. You need tamper-resistant silicon to make the full environment secure. When you have that and you operate legally compliant, there's all kinds of tokenized deposits, different investment efficiencies and things that you see like JP Morgan Onyx and so on and so forth. And then we looked at, with all this new technology and so on, we can reach so many people. We talked about the societal changes, about extending money and banking services, not remittance at very high prices and everything to everyone in the world, very grandiose, vision. And then we got to the epicenter of episode 6, where guess what? All these great technology innovations, the digital transformation, the blockchain, everything under the sun is all wonderful, but no one knows who anyone is from a government regulatory side. And I will start with some data points. Last week, the FDIC put out a statement saying we have never and will never insure a fintech. So the writing's on the wall. And what's happening now is not only the SEC and FinCEN and the Treasury and the currency departments and even getting into the prepaid remittance and so on, where you have the Consumer Protection Bureau type regulatories really pushing hard on KYC. And this episode we want to explore. Okay, and this is about our personal experiences and our opinions. And I'll start with this, Roberto. What does KYC mean if it's not face-to-face? So that's the line I think I want to draw here is right now, we're not face-to-face. This could be a digital fake, right? AI fake. But what does it mean from a bank that has to comply with, different, jurisdictional regulations? What does it mean from your perspective, non-face-to-face, remote, if you will?
It means that basically I think I put the emphasis on the no, right? So yeah, it is to be, right? So how do I know? And here the issue when you're having a digital experience is how much you can trust that the digital experience is additive to your knowledge.
Yes.
And that's the critical bit because, and by the way, I want to just dispel a myth. Now, I'm no longer in financial services. And by the way, we're all regulated. We're all having, whichever industry you're on.
That's right. That
today,
is right.
You have a problem or know who you're dealing with. And there are sensitivities around, oh yeah, but we are doing a trade or we are actually granting a loan or mortgage. Yeah, but even shipping the wrong thing to the wrong place and that thing being used for something else that was supposed to be a weapon, that's a problem from a know your beneficiary point of view, right? So going back to your question is in the digital world is how do I know that I can trust what I experience or what I measure through a sensor?
That's the first time someone said it that way. Beautiful. Carry on, please.
No, so that's becomes opens a bit of a, I would say, a philosophical avenue here because everyone say, I love such and such has created this startup. I love such and such because he's a genius. I love Socrates because told us that to be wise. The first thing you need to know, that's funny, but Socrates said, know thyself. Why? Because if you know yourself, then you know what is not yourself. And that's kind of the fundamental of know your customer. So the fact that you're experiencing something digitally has to be filtered, purified of what is actually you. Because when I say you, is your company polluting, adding, creating some distortion. That's the first thing you need to eliminate. So am I reading the right thing or not? Am I seeing the right thing or not?
Well, look, to me, we've talked before on some other subjects. You bring it to a core. At the end of the day, we're all humans, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the machine aspect. So you and I sitting face to face. I'll turn it to Eric, who has a mind of understanding the digital world very, very well. And that's when you get down to the principle of human philosophy of know thyself, that is a phenomenal. You could say a million different things. Eric, what do you think about that statement?
I'll defer to Roberto.
You were not expecting that, Eric. Eh?
I'm going to deal with the curveball. I think it's fine. I'm going to actually come back to that in a second. But I'm going to, in the introduction, Travis, never say never. When you start looking at why fintechs have such a bad rep, it's because fintechs did come out of the startup mentality, pass-through services, pass-through authentication, pass-through everything. So if you're a regulator, you can't tell them, oh, it's not my fault that you allowed party A to deal with party B through an exchange that you created and the deal was a scam or a sham.
Right.
You have a responsibility, a due diligence. And so you can't use these pass-through things. You have to intimately understand whether a KYC services and mechanisms that you have in place. And now I'll go back to what Roberto said, know thyself in context of what you're doing. So you need KYC if it's going to be financial. You're going to need KYC, as Roberto was saying, outside finance for contracts. You're going to need KYC maybe in your personal life for signing up for services to make sure that they're the services that you want and that you have control over how they're given to you. So we really haven't had people think broadly, not as broadly as Roberto and Socrates, but we haven't had people think broadly about what is KYC really enabling, right? It was a very short list of showing a notary, a driver's license, or some other piece of government issued ID and moving on from there. And we've had conversations, Travis, about a third of Americans don't even have a checking account.
Well,
what are these people going to do when they're on?
By the way, it's legal to have a bank account if you are over 18 and you have a government ID of any kind from any non-sanctioned company. And we have that much people not with a bank account. It's really wild.
Right. So I'm just saying, opening it up to, I think you're on the right track, Roberto. Let's talk about the context of KYC. And then we can go down what would be the kind of the due diligence of using it properly. And another thing of what type of KYC to employ. Because we're going to have to start thinking creatively about new ways of qualifying people based on not how their credit rating score is on a big three credit rating company scale, but what is it like and how they pay their rent or something else as a marker of reliability so they can start building a knowable, quantifiable value that they can now start having engagements with others.
And I think what you're describing here is what my friend Peter Jackson, who's been in the world of data for a while, is now starting to define like the halo of data, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine that to your point, we are also finalizing a very old dispute, everyone should have an identity card, everyone should have an ID, but because in the digital world, even that is just data, a bunch of data. So it's I can fake a bill from my council as well as I can fake a passport from a digital point of view. But maybe if I combine things in a way that I go behind and I basically detect and collect what is the halo of my data. Peter will love me to do that. So
I like that.
It's basically giving you a better triangulation, let's use it like that, or interpolation of what something really is. Because at the end of the day, again, it's an ontological question. What is this what I think it is or is not? Whether it's a customer and is that customer, whether it's a supplier is that supplier. So and back to you were saying in terms of transactions is also, and it's so true for the digital world because the digital world is virtual. So in the virtual world, when I don't have the certainty of my third party, whatever kind of engagement it is at the end, creating an exchange of goods or basically the fruition of a product falls apart because in a digital world, without trust, without this bond that you create, there is no product.
Well, so, excuse me, Eric, and I'll jump to that. It triggers a thought, and we have startup great minds, very innovative, creating granular solutions to meet certain market demands the big banks can't do, and that's the whole category of fintech out there. And what I've seen in my own experiences and others is that the fintech just ticks a box and says, we perform in a contract with the bank. We do all KYC. And that's it. So it's literally pushing the responsibility to who, and then it really comes down to that trust. And Eric, I mean, in the factor of trust, how do you see in a digital world? How can we trust anything in the digital world? Well, of course, our whole world runs on digital processing, binary processing. But how do we achieve trust? Maybe because I know that. And when I first met Roberto, he says, in any relationship, is two human beings trusting each other, and that's the core. Okay, and then how do we in the virtual world? How would you tackle that? It's a big one.
Well, again, not trying to sidestep it, I'm trying to go back into what I think is always key is putting it in context. You'll have trust between two people, face to face or virtually, but it is that level of trust to trusting you in a contract, trusting you with a business, trusting you with a family member. There are levels of trust, right? So when you're into the virtual world, I think that halo, that halo of data is something beyond what you know, or who knows you, or what you have. It's really, we're entering a very interesting era. If done well, it's probably the best area of KYC, and the best area of demonstrating trust is the flow, the context of the flow that you're in. So there should be extra due diligence the first time you do something. So if you're somebody who has a poor credit rating or no credit rating or new to a credit rating in some way, you have to really understand what they're using. To Roberto's point about government IDs, Mexico, we've talked about it, Travis, that several years ago, they've started issuing a digital token with every birth certificate.
That is true. That is phenomenal advancement in Mexico, of all places.
Right.
Absolutely.
Doesn't demonstrate that ID will be used in some way, that people will not mimic its use, right? But there are still some bad players out there who can work around the system to a degree, but foundationally, the person who's associated with that token, you can come back to a point where they can have an immutable record of what they did and didn't do, what smart contract was at play that they did or did not sign. They'll have some recourse. But it is one of those pillars that once people start having digital identities, when they are called into play, and this person normally does this type of shopping, this person normally handles their investments in this way, this person normally maintains these diversities in a portfolio and they don't change on a regular basis. This person normally actually starts doing things more granular. This is how they reinvest dividends, or this is how they extract them. This will become part of the flow, and you'll start having a level of trust per flow. And I think if we do it right, trust will actually increase in the digital world over time, because people will be in these personas and will be able, thanks to the data halo, understanding in basically real time and with the help of AI, really where these people are and what they're likely going to do. And we're going to have a certain threshold of normalcy. And then we're going to layer back on, like, let's do some more due diligence. Even though we believe we have a party here that we know, they're not behaving in a way that we know this party behaves. And that's where I'm thinking this new layer of digital trust is going to be a little bit stronger over time.
But when you get to the quantum computing, we can start to think about when you can start to think about IFA, is not multi-factor authentication, it's infinite factor authentication. No, it's really literally because the flow becomes literally, becomes one flow, it becomes a molecular modification of the space. So I know that's you, right? So
are we gonna get blood swaps every time we go for a DNA check and look at our binary coding?
That's the other issue. That's the other issue, right? The other issue is that I need to trust the two parties, and if the trust is predicated on an incredibly intimate understanding of the data of the two parties, who do we trust with that data?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, yes. I'll stop there. Oh, wow.
No, but just to take back on what Roberto just said.
Yeah,
so this is unusual, Travis. I'm cutting you off. There we go.
I need to talk.
Never say never.
Good idea. No, but this idea of trust, we always talk about this as an endpoint, understanding an individual in a system, right? Or sometimes in IT, a service in a system, right? How do you trust these things to do what they're doing? But what people kind of forget about these bad actors is you have to always challenge the trust relationship itself. You have to know the parties.
Yeah.
But you're going to see these flows. This is a traditional flow. This has a beginning, a middle, and an end. this has these types of players normally in it. That will be part of that flow analysis. Is this a legitimate type of action, right? Are people trying to be anonymous? Certain times that's okay if they're handling health information or PII. There are certain scenarios where those flows will be okay. But I think that context is really important. And now that gets back to what Roberto was just talking about. You're going to have, you can no longer look at, I know you, period. I know you in context, more reliable. I know the holistic operation between these known parties and these flows. That's probably the closest we're going to get to the highest levels of trust.
I think what you say, I still know you, and I continues to know you, which is a bit the basis of what has been introduced in the zero trust concept you have inside, because zero trust is in effect you are rebuilding that trust all the time. So you start always from the base, from the zero base.
Journey. Yes,
it's a journey. Well, I will say this, and we're getting close to our 15-minute mark. A couple minutes here is that AI, digital transformation, automation, machine learning, and so on. You talk to some of the known very advanced KYC, and they say, hey, listen, we can get all the KYC and ID checks and feel comfortable about knowing your customer in less than 3 seconds. Are we like in our real-time payments, are we moving money too fast? Are we approving people too fast one time, not doing it again? And as you said, it's a zero trust. We're always building trust, and so it needs to be continuous, right? It needs to be almost per transaction in a wild way that seems almost difficult transactionally in cloud processing. But do we need to slow things down?
Eric, you want to go for it?
So the answer is
everyone slow down.
No, you can't slow it down.
Okay.
You just can't, right? So it's counterproductive to slow it down. And a lot of regulators are saying we have to slow it down. Well, as you might slow it down in the US, you're seeing it accelerate in Singapore or Switzerland or Germany. So you really can't slow it down. So what you have to do is understand, just like in every technology, not digital technology, every technology in history, there's always some sort of arms race between competitors, between good guys and bad guys, right? Bad players. So we're stuck with that as well. To the point that we've been bringing up, I think we have kind of consensus among the three of us. It's a journey. So you may have that first time KYC, but there's that zero trust responsibility of due diligence to keep that chain going, right? To keep that journal going. I'm making it sound like blockchain again, but you want to keep that log going so people can see with continuity and some predictability or reasonability of what people are doing. And every time somebody starts a new type of use case, by all means, you want to encourage that, but you have to go through that due diligence again. Okay, let's see the point of KYC. If it's a different type of thing that the person never was really involved in insurable assets, there's a higher standard for KYC there. Maybe they don't start fresh. No, they definitely have to start fresh. They just can't continue from where they are.
But let me come back to this on the word standards, right? So I agree we can't decelerate or we can't compress the market. It's impossible, because if you compress here, it's going to blow to somewhere else.
That's a very good comment.
However, one thing that probably needs to be accelerated, and I think regulators are having a better weaponries at their disposal now, is the ability for them to quickly understand what is the norm here and what is out of the norm. And in a specific of the KYC, I think regulators should be able to say, I don't care how you made, I don't care how you organize, I don't care you're a startup or bank. I have the tools, and believe me, they can have the tools today or very soon, to say whether the KYC, that process you have in place, is performing at the same level with the same expectation as everyone else, or as the median of the market I'm trying to regulate.
Right.
Because living off just reporting, just offline things, off-sync things is 20th century. We need to go 21st century is forget about it. I come to you, I get the data I know, and I don't just get data, get the understanding of who you are and how you function, and I can tell whether you are within my expectation or outside of my expectations and tolerances.
Well, I will say this is that, okay, in a wrap up here, an attempt to wrap it up. One, I agree with you, is that almost everyone is trying to be alarmed and suppress the market and slow down. You can't. Natural competition and new technology will flourish everywhere in the world. I do say that it's a financial industry problem, and I'll say this as a personal view, and is that, you know, I am satisfied this year that over the last 5 years, there's $20 trillion in illicit funds and criminal activity in all forms of fraud. Now, people say, oh, no. But when you put it all together, is it something that, and it's not just KYC and AML, which is a big part, it's everything. So I think that zero, you know, based trust and so on, where we have to continually knowledge to know your, you know your customer, know the transactions, and as Eric said, is the context. Wonderful discussion. Any parting comments, Roberto and Eric? We have about a minute left, and we'll see how you would like to kind of wrap up this episode 7.
From my side, is always a journey of discovery, a journey of maturity, and the reality is that change is always a constant. Actually, nowadays, even change is changing, so we better be ready.
We're in AI time, is Eric's.
Well, yeah, we are in AI time instead of internet time or standard time. But where Roberto kind of started with Socrates, I want to end with Clayton Christensen and the Innovator's Dilemma. If you start looking at fintech and all the flaws it has in KYC and all the flaws it might have in that visibility, transparency required to operate in the financial industry, look at the iterations, look what they can do. The concept of zero trust that Roberto and I have been talking about is impossible without digital. You can't have zero trust in traditional, it cannot scale, it cannot be delivered, it cannot work in real time. So eventually you'll start seeing that the fintechs can and will deliver at a quality of service at the same or superior to traditional financials.
Wonderful, guys. Well, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much, Roberto and Eric, for being on the show today. And take care, and look forward to the next episode 8. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you. Be well.
Bye.